And you should really question your doctor.
Yeah.
Right? Because doctors go to school, they want to heal people, but when you get into a conventional medical system, their hands are really tied with what they can and can't do.
I'm excited about this.
Me too. This is going to be fun. I hope a lot of people benefit from it. That's my hope.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Well, that's the reason why we're doing it, right? To be able to create a little bit more awareness of the integrative and functional aspect of things. So often we kind of just default to general practitioner and like kind of the natural process of how we grew up and how we've done things. But before we get too much into it, okay, introduce yourself and give us a little bit of background on you. Who is Dr. Aimee?
Well, Dr. Aimee Harris-Newon, that's me. I'm the clinical director for the Center for Integrative and Functional Health and Wellness in Bloomingdale.
Yeah.
I am a double board certified integrative and interventional clinical psychologist with a postgraduate specialization in functional medicine.
Wow.
I'm a best-selling author of the book HOTWORX, an integrative approach to health and happiness. And I have been a coach in the past, a life coach. I've been fortunate to work with companies such as Red Bull, FedEx, UPS, the U.S. Army. I am currently the host of the Mind Over Matters radio show, which airs every Sunday at 10 a.m. on WCPT AM 820.
Wow.
And I've been a frequent speaker at Harvard.
All right.
So,
wow. Jeez. Just throw that one in there. Why? Why not? Right? Yeah.
Just kidding.
Don't drop the mic. But,
really.
Yeah.
I've got the great benefit, the honor, and the privilege of working with a lot of great minds in integrative and functional medicine.
That's fantastic.
From meeting them at Harvard and other trainings over the years.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, rely on them heavily.
Well, I feel like I should have gone first. My name is Nate Olson, and I actually have the benefit. Actually, years back, I decided that I was just getting to the point where I was about 300 pounds, and just decided that it was time to be able to lose some weight. And what's wild is actually the reason why I decided this is we had gone to a trip that was paid for by a company that we were working for at the time, and they had rented out Universal Studios. Okay. And so every ride that we went on, we had the opportunity to go straight to the front. So if you've got the opportunity to not wait in line, you don't choose the back row, you choose the front row for these rides, right? And we were in line for the Hulk, okay, which is a great roller coaster in Universal Studios. And we had lined up for the front. I sat down in the front car and I'm pulling down the harness over myself and realize that it's just not coming down. And I'm like, there's for sure something I'm missing here. Is there a belt that needs to connect to this thing or whatever it is? And I'm pulling it down. It's not working. The attendant comes over and takes a look at what I'm trying to do and get this thing on me. And unfortunately, they said, well, you're actually just a little bit too big. We got to move you back to the ADA row. Wow. So I had to get up out of the first row, go back to like the fifth car that facilitated a little bit larger individual. And at the time, I was probably 25, 26 years old.
Pretty young.
And I was like 26 years old to already be making accommodations based on my size, just because I hadn't chosen to like focus on what I needed to focus on and just eat and put the right stuff into me. I was like, no, I'm going to go ahead and make this change. Right. So, lost like 60 pounds.
Wow.
Just your traditional calorie deficit, eating less, working out more, and reached a plateau. But I always wanted to, after I lost all that weight, I wanted to be able to help other people. And my brother-in-law and I had always wanted to do business together. So we had an opportunity to be able to open up a franchise. His background was in franchising. So we this HOTWORX franchise came across his desk. And he said, hey, would you be interested in doing this with me? And I said, yep. So me, him, and his other partner, we decided to start HOTWORX. Since then, we've lost more weight. We've helped a ton of other people lose weight. We're giving people access to infrared. So that might be a longer story, but I definitely don't have as many commendations that you have, Dr. Aimee. It's amazing.
You've got credibility, Nate, that is relatable, and it's real world, and it's making a difference in your life, in your family's life now, because they need to rely 100%. On you to be a father and go the distance and raise your kids and generations on in a healthy way. Yeah. So that's really fantastic. And the work that you're doing with your brother, allows you guys to give back to a lot more people. in the ways that have benefited you directly. And that's really powerful. It's what we call a mastery model. You've mastered it yourself. And now you're at a point where, you want to give back and share with others so they can share the same health and success.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's invaluable.
Oh,
what a great story. It was really a wake-up call for you.
Oh, such a wake-up call, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. That kind of a wake-up call is a lot better than a heart attack wake-up call.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So you were in psychology, right? That's your background, is psychology. And then you had kind of a similar, not a similar story, but just a wake-up call, right? To be able to figure out, like, going into the direction of integrative and functional health. Like, tell us a little bit about what that looked like for you.
Yeah, for many years I was a clinical psychologist. So you're a traditional psychotherapist seeing clients for depression, anxiety, those kind of things. About 2010, 2011, my mom was diagnosed with diabetes, but it was pretty mild at that time.
Okay.
She had then gotten a car accident and presented to the emergency room, check her out, some aches and pains. She was pretty banged up. She was in her early 70s at that time.
Okay.
And they prescribed her pain medications, opioids. And the pain had not gotten any better. So she went back to the doctors a few months later, and they prescribed her more pain medication. And by this time, her diabetes was actually progressing pretty quickly, because a side effect of those kind of medications, many medications, is hormone imbalance. So her insulin was just kind of all over the place.
Sure.
She had continued to get worse with the pain. And because those medications can interrupt the pain signal, but then they come with what they call rebound pain. So your pain actually gets worse. And just a series of side effects, including congestive heart failure, because those medications cause that too. So then we've got the compounding effects of all these side effects. Diabetes is now complicated. Now she's got congestive heart failure. Then she gets in another accident. It was not her fault, but admittedly, she wasn't the best driver in the world. And then she gets put on more pain medication. Then she's on upwards of 18 plus medications, and it's getting to the point where her health is so bad, we're not even recognizing her. So one of my sisters, she had lived in Texas at the time, said, "Hey, this isn't working. Mom's getting worse and worse. We've got to turn it around." So we worked. I was fortunate enough to be a partner with, an integrative pharmacist. So she reviewed the medication, looked at the interaction side effects, and we're like, we've got to turn this around. And that was about the time that my partner was diagnosed with chronic fatigue, going to doctor.
Okay.
And so ultimately, we were able to get my mom off about half the medications, reverse her diabetes through learning functional medicine. But then came the fatal heart attack as the side effect from the congestive heart failure. And at the same time, my partner's health is deteriorating. So that really was a wake-up call. I like to say what happened to me and my family. I wouldn't wish that on any family. And then here it's at that confluence of where we're seeing traditional psychotherapy patients, and their benefits are kind of hitting a ceiling because they're dealing with chronic health issues too. And that was when, I made the decision, hey, we've got to open up an integrative healthcare center, because the interface of mental health and physical health can't be denied. And if I'm only treating the mental health and ignoring the body, they're going to have limits on how well, they can recover from, the depression or anxiety, and vice versa. So that was really, what turned things around and led us to focus on functional medicine. And just so, the listeners know, functional medicine is really that area of medicine that's focused on identifying the underlying root cause of the disease or the symptom of illness, and treating the root cause, not just the symptom.
Well, why wouldn't you want to do that?
Yeah. Well, it's profitable to just treat the symptom, but that's really what functional medicine is, identifying that root cause. And then that integrative approach is taking, interventions from conventional medicine, Western medicine, and alternative medicine, and looking at the person as a whole and seeing, all right, so what's going on physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, and what are the interventions you can draw from these different areas to treat the person holistically.
Wow.
And that's what we decided to do. That's what has to happen to get whole healing. And that's wonderful that you're so involved in HOTWORX because you help with the whole healing process.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I'm more of the traditional, my generation, I think that would say, I'm sure that there's studies out there, I just haven't looked at them, in regards to how many of our generation just continues to go to the doctor, doesn't go to the doctor, right? I'm your traditional, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's just kind of like the way that I've kind of developed things. And a lot of that is because of a similar situation with my mom is, my mom at 18 years old, she developed breast cancer and lymphoma. And within a year, we went from not knowing anything about those things to a year later, she was gone.
Wow.
And then afterwards, after that process, and this was, 18 years old. My sister was 22 at the time.
Young.
She was going to be married in 3 months after she passed away. I was supposed to graduate high school, or I did graduate. I still did, Dr. Aimee. But I graduated high school shortly thereafter, prom, all that kind of stuff, like very kind of integrative part of our family's lives. But afterwards, there was a attorney group that came to my father and was like, hey, was she taking any medication for her rheumatoid arthritis? And obviously, they had already known that, but there was a specific medication that was under the microscope for potentially causing these things that had happened in my mom. And it was very likely, like, we didn't have all of the documentation that they required and pictures of the process. And like, as you're going through that, you don't like stop and like, I'm going to take pictures of this just in case.
What can we do to save my mom?
Exactly. So it turns out that was probably the root cause. So since then, any medications, doctors, vaccinations, like any of that, right? I've been a little bit weary of, understandably so.
Sure.
And I think that there's a lot of people out there that are similar to me in that fact of just like, we've been taught, I think that trust is a good thing. Trust is a great thing. But I think that blind trust without really digging in to really figure out what's truly going on with some of the things that we've been taught to do is not something that we're interested in doing anymore, and that's why I got turned on to the whole integrative and functional health is just the fact of just like, hey, there's got to be another way. Than just medicating.
There's always another way. There's an old Chinese saying that there are many roads to the top of the mountain. There's always another way. Now, I like to say there's a time and a place for all forms of healing. An example would be if you've got an acute infection, an antibiotic might be a really, really good thing.
Yeah.
Antibiotics have literally saved my life. So I'm a fan of many forms of healing.
Sure.
But for a chronic condition, the current medical model just fails miserably. We've got a great emergency medicine system here in the United States. If you've got a heart attack or a stroke or a car accident, we can save a life like no other country. But for chronic conditions, the conventional medical approach is simply symptom management. And unfortunately, the underlying disease or illness continues to progress. So, and a lot of that is because we're not focused on reversing chronic disease. It's disease management, sometimes called population management. I'll let you draw your own conclusions from that. But it's a very profitable industry, as is the cancer. It's called cancer industry because it's very, very profitable. So, I can certainly understand how you're weary of conventional medical approaches. And I think blind trust, you should really question your doctor. Yeah. Right? Because doctors go to school, they want to heal people, but when you get into a conventional medical system, their hands are really tied with what they can and can't do. It's called the standards of care, and standards of care are actually determined by the insurance company, not your doctor. You would think that your doctor would be able to know what's best for you. Yeah. And I think they often do, but when you get in a system with constraints such as that, they're really limited on what they can offer. And that's where, a practice like ours, the Center for Integrative and Functional Health and Wellness, I think really shines because we're focused on taking that integrative approach. And really, we've got the opportunity to offer a lot of interventions that conventional medical providers can't. And not because they don't want to. Yeah. Sometimes they just don't know, or they literally can't.
Wild.
Yeah.
So how does a typical process work for you? I mean, you've got, I would imagine there's a lot of people who step into an environment like an integrative and functional medicine, kind of a center like this, that are kind of at their wits' end, right? That have gone through all of the other traditional routes and have been relatively frustrated with that process, or maybe haven't gotten any answers, or tell us a little bit about what that looks like for somebody like that. Obviously, there's a whole host of different things that they could be coming in for, but tell us a little bit about like how that process works.
Yeah. So first of all, we spend a lot of time with our clients and patients.
Yeah.
The average medical visit nationally is about 7 minutes.
Holy cow.
With our doctor, minimum, you're going to get 30 to 60 minutes.
Okay.
So we're very, very focused on understanding what's going on in our patient or clients' lives, not just the medical symptoms, or not just the mental health system or symptoms, rather. So let's just say somebody comes in to see us for depression. Well, we're going to do a really good initial evaluation, understand, in that the initial process, what's contributing, how long they've had it, how severe is it, what they've tried. But we're also going to do something called mental health labs, which is a proprietary set of labs that looks at specific nutrient profiles that are known to cause or correlate with mental health conditions.
Wow.
And a lot of times people will have like a mental health condition that can be easily treated by looking at underlying deficiencies or imbalances in certain things. And likewise, if somebody comes in as a medical patient, we're going to run some pretty extensive labs. We'll certainly do the mental health lab panel because deficiencies, of course, contribute to imbalances. But again, our doctors are going to say, what kind of stress are you dealing with every day? What are your sleep habits like? Tell me about your eating habits. Tell me, do you exercise? What are your relationships like? What else is going on in your body? When we'll create what we call a treatment tree, like a tree with a lot of branches. So we'll say, all right, so this is holistically what's going on with this patient. What kind of treatment approach do they need to get, remission? Because we can't say cure, so we want to, create remission. And what's going to get them to that path the fastest? I like results. I'm a Taurus, so I like results.
There you go.
I'm a go-getter. So what's going to heal their body and mind, and what is the fastest approach to do that? And so we'll pick different interventions, maybe some conventional medical interventions and psychological interventions, and then we'll draw on some alternative interventions too. And then we'll sit down with the patient, say, hey, so this is what's going on. We've met as a treatment team, because we meet as a treatment team every morning. Who's coming in? What's going on? What do they need?
Wow.
And then we'll sit down with the patient and say, hey, this is what we've found. This is what the treatment team is recommending. What are your thoughts? What's manageable? What's the best approach for you? Because to engage the client or the patient in their treatment process, now there's buy-in, now they're committed, and now they really are going to get results. Yeah. So I'm really proud of the way we do things. It's very, very different.
Yeah.
And
I'd say so.
Yeah. I like to say that when you heal a person, you heal a family. And when you heal a family, you can heal a community. And we want to change. We want to change lives. And when you change one life, you change a life for 3 generations. Yeah. And that's, it harkens me back to you and what you did, when you were, 25, 26. You're changing, the path for your kids, and you're going to change the path for your kids. Yeah. So.
Holy cow.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. A lot of people come to see us when they've been frustrated. It's kind of their last resort.
Sure.
They say, oh, you're the best kept secret. So we don't want to be a secret anymore.
There you go.
But people are like, what? You do this and you do that there? I'm like,
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And you've mentioned depression. You've mentioned, some chronic illness. We talked a little bit about Hashimoto's and about autoimmunes in general.
Oh, my God, they're going through the roof.
Yeah, going through the roof like crazy. And a lot of times, too, it's just like an expectation that, like, this is who I'm going to be now. And then, people who have knee issues, this is just who I am. I have knee issues or I have back issues, What do you say to that? That somebody that just has resigned to the fact that this is just who I am.
Yeah. First of all, let's say that's not who you have to be.
Yeah.
But a lot of that is due to conditioning. social conditioning. It's said that we've got 2 washer machines in our home. One is for our clothes and one is for our mind. So our television, our screens.
Yeah.
Because we're seeing commercials every day that say, ask your doctor if XYZ is right for you.
Yeah.
And that kind of conditioning leads us to believe that we're just going to have to live with the autoimmune disorder. And likewise, in the conventional medical model, patients hear that all the time. Well, you're just going to have to learn to live with it. Or this is one of my favorites. So, kind of dismiss it out of hand and say, well, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
So, and then it becomes a part of a patient's identity. Well, I have chronic fatigue. I'm always going to have chronic fatigue. And then when, we meet with that patient or client, say, that's not who you have to be. That's not what you have to deal with. Sometimes they're a little bit skeptical, and I understand the skepticism because they've been taught you just have to live with this.
Yeah.
Until we, work with them and educate them that there are a lot of different treatment approaches. You don't have to be that disease. That doesn't have to be part of your identity or your life anymore. But you got to be willing to earn your health back, because it's going to require doing things differently than just taking medications. Medications, again, there's a time and a place, but to reverse a chronic condition, medications aren't going to do it. That chronic condition will continue to progressively get worse. So you don't have to live with it. And a lot of people are really surprised. What?
Yeah.
I can successfully treat my autoimmune condition. I thought this was just, something I had to deal with the rest of my life and be on medications the rest of my life. And you don't have.
Yeah. Well, and I thought too, just from a standpoint of like joints, and I played basketball all my life.
That's right. Yeah.
And then just stopped playing basketball because I had these knees that would, every time I played basketball, they would just like hurt for 2-3 days afterwards, and just dealt with too many times of like the back and forth that just was a little bit too close to getting injured, or I would injure myself.
Killed your dunk, didn't it?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I could dunk like you wouldn't know. I've never dunked in my life on a full 10-foot rim. But I just thought that was just the way things are going to be. So I stopped playing basketball just for the fact of I want to make sure that I can run around after my kids. Like, I don't want an injury to prevent me from being able to work and make money or do all the things. So unfortunately, I did give up the basketball, but the knees kind of were still a pervasive issue. I didn't run, didn't do any of those things. And I just thought that eventually I'd have to get to a point where I'd get shots or I'd get surgery, or, that was just kind of the natural progression.
Are the next steps.
And I know that you've studied a little bit of Dr. Hyman,
I love
a lot of bit of Dr. Hyman.
I love Dr. Mike.
Yeah.
I'm not going to marry him, but I'm married.
But if
I
you guys,
love his work.
Yeah, if listeners haven't checked out Dr. Hyman, he's a great resource for all things functional, as we're talking about. But like a lot of things that I do, is I looked up osteoarthritis and Mark Hyman, and was able to find a couple of podcasts and just some suggestions on reducing inflammation in your knees and through osteoarthritis by just eliminating gluten and dairy. So I just decided that for 30 days, I'm just going to do no gluten and no dairy. And wouldn't you know it? Like, my knee issues, they went away.
Ta-da!
And they're completely gone.
I love a good ta-da.
And now I can run and, do all of the things. And like, as soon as my daughter just turned 7, okay, so we have the birthday parties, and around our house, it's like the birthday party, like it's nonstop for at least a week.
That's
okay?
Awesome. I love that it gets extended.
Oh yeah. You know how kids are. It's like they start making their list like as soon as their birthday is over from the last year. They're like, all right, here's my list for the next year. And so anyway, for a week we had like the cookie cake, the cake, the ice cream, the cupcakes.
You're making me hungry.
Like it was all of these different things. Yeah, it's too early for all that stuff.
It's never too early for dessert, in moderation, of course.
But like that entire week, because it was around, I was just like, and I typically stay away from that stuff, not all the time, right? Yeah. Like you said, moderation. But for that week, I was just like, man, it's birthday week. Not for me, but for her. And ate a lot of that stuff. And all of a sudden I was like, man, my knees, I think I have a knee issue again. And then I just took a step back and I was like, this entire week I've been eating the gluten. I've been eating dairy. I've been eating sugar. I've been And sugar's the worst thing possible for that stuff, right?
The known inflammatory
Oh my
agents.
gosh.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So many chronic health conditions, including, pain and inflammation in joints, can be reversed by cleaning up your diet.
Yeah, it's wild.
One thing we do here, we do a lot of food sensitivity testing, and people are often shocked. What? I've got a sensitivity to blah, blah, blah and XYZ. And if I just clean that up, I can reverse this. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So much of it is food related. And that affects our moods too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Brain fog, right? Brain fog was
irritability, depression, anxiety, all of it.
That was another thing that I just thought that I was just like, I honestly had the mentality that I was just a little bit slower than most people, because I would always have these circumstances where I wouldn't be able to come up with a word. I don't know if you've ever been like right on the top. When I started eating junk food,
oh my gosh, absolutely. And I can go down a junk food rabbit hole pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So I need accountability.
Yeah.
I want to be a role model for our patients. But I noticed same thing when my diet starts to fall off, the cliff, brain fog.
Yeah.
Irritability, anxiety symptoms come on, all of it.
And you don't realize it until you take the steps to eat better, right? Until you actually clean it up. Like I was unaware. I always felt like I feel pretty good.
Yeah.
But then I did a detox, cleaned out my system for 14 days. And after that, like during that detox and then after that, I was like, I feel like $1 million. This is incredible.
And it gets easier too.
It's amazing.
It gets easier. I'm reminded of an analogy Dr. Hyman gave. He said, we don't realize how bad we feel until we start to feel better. It's like having a low-grade fever. It just becomes your norm. And then when you start to feel better, you realize, wow, I was really feeling like S-T.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how awful I felt until my body's starting to recover. And it doesn't take that long. 2 weeks, clean it up. It's like, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you start to lose the cravings too. That's enough time for your body to start cleaning itself out. And then you don't miss, the Jamal Common fudge ice cream that I love so much. But you don't miss
That was right on the tip of your tongue. There,
it was, because I've been thinking, you mentioned ice cream.
Yeah.
But that's a slippery slope too.
It is.
Processed foods, they'll not only destroy your physical body, they'll destroy your mental body too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of studies too that because of some of those processed foods and because of some of the things that we're putting into our systems, that it's creating some of these four horsemen, so to speak, right? That Dr. Attia and some of these guys talk about in regards to what's killing us today. That's heart disease, it's Alzheimer's, it's diabetes, it's type 2 diabetes.
Those things are going through the roof.
And it's crazy how much of that is all tied back to just what we eat, what we put in our bodies.
It's preventable.
Yeah.
It's absolutely preventable.
I got an analogy one time told me that if you only had one car that you were given, right, when you turned 16, you got one car, and that one car was going to be the one car that you could have for the rest of your life. Like, what would you choose to do with that car? Like, how would you choose to maintain it? Would you put the best oil in it, synthetic, or would you just put normal oil in it? Would you put premium gasoline in it, or would you put regular gas in it? And would you make sure that you followed all of the protocols, like at the 3 months, the 6 months, the 12 months, whatever point you needed to be able to do the maintenance on that vehicle? And the answer is 100% yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
but
for sure.
We have these bodies that are much more intricate than a car that we don't treat the same way.
We don't. We don't. We have something at the end of our DNA strands called telomeres. And they show that our bodies are designed to live to be, 130, 150 years old. So imagine a car. It would be a classic car by that time.
Oh, yeah.
But if we gave it the best of everything, it would literally run 500,000 miles, 1 million miles, 100, 110, 115 years old. It's like this plant. Our bodies just need the basics. This needs good soil and good, that includes, for this good nutrition, sunlight, water. Our bodies were designed to last and last and last, but we don't take care of them. And that's such a great analogy. If we had one car, you're darn right, I'd take care of it like it was, the most precious thing on earth, because it is actually.
Yeah, for sure. What's been your favorite, I shouldn't say favorite, but what's been a story of a patient that has come into the center that you just absolutely are just super proud of the fact that you were able to help them?
Okay, I'll give you two because I saw one the other day. Let's see.
Okay.
We're recording this. I saw somebody earlier this week on Tuesday.
Okay.
And she doesn't come into the office because we're treating her neuropathy.
Okay.
And just so listeners know, neuropathy is very reversible. The National Institute of Health said as long as the underlying nerve has not died off, it can be regenerated.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're treating her neuropathy, but she had a fall over the weekend, not neuropathy related. And I saw her in the lounge area, and I said, "Hey, oh my gosh, I saw you were coming in today. I'm so proud of you. I've noticed that, you've been doing your treatment. We get updates on that every day." And she said, "Dr. Aimee, oh my God, you've completely turned my life around. And I would have never imagined that's possible." I said,
"Wow."
I said, "Oh my gosh, thank you. That's so humbling."
Yeah.
And she went on to say, "I'm here because, I fell over the weekend, but I would have never imagined I could get the feeling back in my feet and my hands. And I'm doing things with my family now." And so it was humbling, but it was exciting. I gave her, a big fist bump. I know you and I talked about a client named Leslie. I can use her first name because she's given us permission to use her last name.
Sounds good. All right.
First name. And she came to us, I think it was April of 2020.
Okay.
At the time, she had diabetes that was through the roof. I think her A1C literally was like 16. And doctors like, "How are you still, here?" She had cardiac disease. She was almost 100 pounds overweight.
Wow.
She had issues with her kidneys and her liver. And her doctors, she came to us from Canada. She had heard me on a webinar.
Okay.
Her doctors in Canada had given her about a year to live. And so she came to a talk. I gave a webinar talk on diabetes and autoimmune. And she told her husband, "Hey, we've got to come here. I want to schedule a consultation." So she comes in April with her husband. And then she, decides to see one of our doctors. We got her on what we call a peak wellness plan. It's a functional medicine plan that's meant to successfully treat and reverse, if we can. We can't always, the underlying health conditions.
Okay.
So within, I think this was April, by October, we had, dramatically, reduced her A1C. It was like 6.5 at that time. She had lost 96 pounds.
Wow.
Her kidneys were recovering. Her liver, failure was reversing. And our doc here said it had given her about a year to live too. She said,
"Oh my gosh."
And you can see her testimonial on her website. She said that, she was told to plan her funeral, but instead of planning your funeral, now she's able to plan for her family. So, and it's remarkable results. She's now this is, coming up on 4 years later.
Wow.
And she had one grandchild at the time. I think it was 4 or 5. Now she's expecting her third grandchild. And so, and while her results are really remarkable, they're very typical of what a client can get if they're willing to understand the root cause of what's creating this disease and dysfunction, and willing to take a different approach and invest in their health as though it were the only car they're given.
Wow.
So, that makes me really proud, but that is, again, I don't mean to sound arrogant or flippant or dismissive of the severity of that. But if you're willing to take a different approach other than medications or surgeries, you can create some miraculous outcomes in your health. And remember, whatever's happening to you affects everyone else in your life. And it gets more expensive to fix as you go.
Yeah. Oh.
That car.
Yeah.
It's the only one you've got.
I ran into a guy in Mariano's, just around the corner here, not too long ago, and he was overweight. Somebody who was a little bit more overweight and was utilizing one of those carts to be able to get around the store. And he stopped me because I must have just recently got a haircut, and he was like, "Hey, are you
good,
law enforcement?"
I was questioning the same thing. Did you get your haircut this week?
A few days ago.
It looks good.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate that. But I must have just gotten it cut. And I don't know what I was wearing, but he just assumed that I was law enforcement. And he stopped me. He's like, "Hey, are you law enforcement?" I was like, "No,
Was he
I'm not."
stealing? Sounds like a guilty conscience.
Yeah. But I was like, "No, why do you ask?" He's like, "Oh, I just thought the hair, I was like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "What do you do?" And I said, I've got a fitness studio just down the way. And he's like, "Hey, you need to tell every one of your clients that comes in there that to not stop moving, to not stop being active and physical." He's like, "It's the biggest regret that I have is to stop moving and look at me now." He's like, "I'm paying for it now. Tell them to pay for it in the moment so they're not paying for it later." And I was just like,
that's powerful.
Why don't you just come on over down to just a few doors down and tell everybody that yourself? But ever since then, I've utilized that example for so many.
It's sad.
Yeah.
But
Super
true.
Sad. Yeah.
Sad but true. I hope he can find a good functional and integrative doc that can help him, successfully treat whatever's going on. But a body in motion is meant to stay in motion. We know that from physics, right? Yep. And that is one of the best things we can do to reverse illness and disease is get your body moving. Get your body moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was meant to move. It reminds me of movement and muscle. Dr. Mark Hyman said, muscle is the currency of longevity. Well, guess what? That means, if we're building muscle, that means we're moving our body. Yeah. Yeah. It's one of the fastest ways to reduce inflammation is move your body.
One of the other things, not to cut you off, but one of the other things that we talked about was the fact, we were talking about, I mentioned the 4 horsemen, and one of those is Alzheimer's. And one of the things that was just alarming to me, and I've actually been asking everybody since then, all of my older, whether it's my dad, his wife, my father-in-law, mother-in-law, I've been asking everybody, do you take any medications for cholesterol? Statin medications.
Glad you brought that up.
And that's something that was super, as far as hot takes go, that was a hot take for me, of just an alternative to just the way that we think about things right now. So you had said something to the effect, and I'll let you state it a whole lot better than I do, that a lot of the Alzheimer's dementia that's happening in patients is due to cholesterol medication, statin medication that people have been prescribed for cholesterol.
Yeah, and that's not just my opinion. You can, read that in the medical journals. It is one of the leading causes of dementia. Our brain, a lot of our brain is fat. It's cholesterol. And the cholesterol medication just kind of suck that out of our brain. And it's one of the leading causes of joint pain and joint disease, too, because the cholesterol medication, it's like pouring battery acid on your ligaments, your tendons, your joints. So I would say talk to your doctor about, some alternatives to cholesterol medication. And if they balk, you need to find another doctor. Yeah. If they're open to it, say, all right, so what are my options? A lot of times with, cholesterol medications, it's now legal to prescribe those as a preventative. Same thing with blood pressure. You can a preventative. It's like the last thing you want to do. Wow. There's so many natural ways to reverse your cholesterol. And, it's interesting too, the American Journal of Cardiology, as well as the American Medical Association Journal, it says, it's not cholesterol that causes heart attacks. It's really when cholesterol binds to the sugar molecule, and then it creates this tacky substance that we call plaque. Yeah. So it's not, cholesterol isn't the killer. And guess what? We've known that since the 1950s, Nate. Wow. We've known that since the 1950s. Cholesterol isn't what causes heart disease.
Then why is it still pervasive that that is the case? Even my sister-in-law recently just, was told that, hey, your cholesterol is high. So her immediate reaction is, well, no more eggs.
Oh, yeah, that's a big misnomer. I remember that marketing campaign.
And I know that we're going to get into a whole lot more of this in future episodes and talk about nutrition and those sort of things, right? But but we're kind of giving people a taste of everything and just kind of getting to know us a little bit here.
Yeah, we're sampling the menu.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is making me hungry.
Exactly. That's right. Let's go get some eggs.
I'm reminding myself of my dog Sutton. He's an eating machine.
Yeah, for sure.
But cardiac disease, that's reversible. and preventable. All the lifestyle diseases are preventable.
Yeah.
Only 1 to 3% of anything is related to genetics. The rest is related to, our lifestyle, what we call epigenetics. And epigenetics, if you think of it like a light switch, you can turn on and off disease by your lifestyle. And so much of the American lifestyle is really poor. We're sedentary. We're eating what's called the standard American diet, which is processed food. It's almost all genetically modified. In countries over in Europe, it's against the law to genetically modify your food. So you think, why are they so much healthier than us? Well, why is heart disease and diabetes and cancers on the rise? It's mostly lifestyle and medication side effects.
Well, I'm excited about getting more into this conversation. Thanks so much for agreeing to do this with me.
Sure.
I think that this is fantastic, and that we get
you.
the opportunity to be able to offer people just a different perspective, and hopefully just introduce them into a world that allows them to be able to focus a little bit more on what they can control rather than just accepting the fact that they can't control it, that they need to go to a doctor, figure out how they need to medicate or get surgery, or when a lot of times all of those things can be avoided. We just
almost always.
Almost always.